why I've often said, if all this development that we are doing is paying these tremendous dividends, then why is it we had to raise the cigarette tax 25 cents for radios and public vehicle? That goes back a ways. But I remember all these things. How come you have to raise real estate taxes for full-day kindergarten, though it was more than what was necessary? How come every time we turn around to real estate tax, real estate tax, real estate tax, here's a fee, if in fact, because either one of two things has to be true. Either one, those things are not returning the investment that they claim, and we really do need to raise revenue to pay our costs, or their appetite to spend spends all of that, plus they want to spend more. Now, I don't know which it is, but either answer is telling. So I would say in the end, just like the overall economy is what, 70% consumer driven, right? That's just true. So it's true in Virginia Beach too. You know, residences are where ultimately the business has to charge them unless they're exporting it to another country, right? That's not true. But for the most part, they're getting the revenue for their businesses from us, which is when you go around and look at the city, all the lease spaces, all the vacant office spaces. Well, the Wall Street Journal had an article saying the country has about 39% too much retail space across the country. Now, every market is its own place, but I think that can tell you why City View hasn't developed yet, that we gave them a $10.1 million tax subsidy give back. Why? Because what's a bank going to require? You know this. What's a bank going to require before they'll lend you money for an office space? They want 70% lease, and for a certain term. Because what? Banks don't take risks. They don't want to own office buildings. So the fact that this stuff's not happening, even with the subsidy, tells you the weakness of the market. Now, getting back to my grocery stores, and I've got too much knowledge in this brain probably. This is one of the most competitive grocery markets in the United States of America. It is, and to our benefit. Thank goodness, that's one break we get. I guess that's because the city doesn't subsidize grocery stores and doesn't distort things, so we get how free market works. Isn't that amazing? But nonetheless, but people that had a high cost model, which is what Farm Fresh had a cost model, couldn't compete in the marketplace because they can't do what? They can't confiscate revenue. They have to earn it. And their cost model wouldn't work, and they are going out of business. Well, that's what free enterprise is all about. But for that to happen in government, the voters have to be just like the consumers and don't go to the high-priced stores or like the stockholders get new leadership so their company doesn't go out of business and sells the products that they want to buy versus the ones they want to put on the shelf. There is a lot of analogy to you. We have to be smarter consumers because you're going to get the bill. So the overall economy in Hampton Roads is performing below the national average. The GDP growth in Virginia Beach is not 2.4%. So the budget is growing faster than gross domestic product for our region and for our city, which means government is growing fast. So it's a larger and larger share of the overall economy. And in reality, in Hampton Roads, you take the Fed, the state, and local governments, they're about 60% of our economy is government driven. And when that's the case, that has an influence on the need to contain costs because we're not having this private sector growth. We don't have the Microsoft, we don't have the Amazon, we don't have the Tesla. We have working folks, and that's where they get the money from principally. So we're in much better shape than many communities, and people should not take that like, oh, the sky is falling. But you know, you got to know when the past and the future are disconnected. And you can't look back and think that the linear path that got us to this spot is going to provide for us going forward. It is just not the case. The world is different. Our cost curve, and I've said this over and over, is not sustainable without further impoverishing the very people that we serve. And the 5-year forecast says that. We have got to do something different. We have got to change the cost basis of government collectively. And there are going to be a lot of hard choices, but I like hard choices. I thrive on those. Next.
Hey, John, isn't it true that the city and the state subsidized 3 grocery store chains to come to this town or give them tax incentives? Did Whole Foods or Aldi's get some incentives from the city or the state to come here?
City council did not consciously vote on that incentives for those places. I do not know off the top of my head whether or not, because Aldi's only has like 4 employees per shift, so I don't know how much subsidy they get, whether or not they got any economic development incentive program incentives for training or whatnot for their employees, but they did not get any tax considerations from the city council that we voted on.
Another thing too, interesting enough, I built 2 houses on 24th Street in the last year or two, and they're, that property was worth minimal on taxes. Now it's generating about $10,000 a year with no assistance from the government, by the way. I had a inspector stop by and say, "Art, I got to talk to you for a second." I said, "What's going on?" He goes, "We had a conversation this morning in the city. We want to know, with all this new real estate that we're putting on the books in the city of Virginia Beach, where are all those tax dollars going? Because even if you go down to the oceanfront, you see all the tear downs that are happening right now. They're tearing down a $200,000 house and they're building a $600,000 house. So there's huge monies coming in to the city on the tax revenue stream alone." And they had a valid point. Here's a 25-year veteran in the city, asked the question, couldn't answer, where is the money going? Where is it going? We're building houses like crazy all over the place. These are increasing the revenue streams that we have. Where's the money going? Of course, I probably could tell you, but I want to hear from you.
Well, it's a big place, and like here is, I'm trying to say the executive summary here, but you can go and look at our $2 million, and this don't hold me to being precise, because I'm, got a lot of stuff in my brain, but I don't remember down the digits. We got about $400 million in payroll, I would say. I might be off a little bit on the city side. It's about 60% payroll. So think of that $1 billion. It's about half and half between city and schools, about roughly. And say that's going for payroll, some kind or another, overtime, this or that. And then you get debt service takes 10% of the money, city and school. Then you add in the utilities, the cost, boom. So that's, on the city side, school side, I think about 85% of your budget's labor. I think that's pretty close. So that gets back on this under execution so important. So if you know where most of the money goes, it's in someone's bank account, when they get paid, and debt service, for a large part, are the 2 biggest expenses that we have in the bond rating. Then after that, then I talk about expenditures versus debt service. Remember, I borrow $50 million, that takes about a cent of real estate tax. So I spend $50 million, so that's an expenditure. The next year when the debt service shows up, that's a different expenditure, that's debt service. But on the budget, I appropriated $50 million because that's what I'm going to spend. So our capital budget is a substantial amount of our annual expenditures. So that's where most of the money goes to those fixed costs of doing business.
The increase in leeway, the increase of the value of the properties that have went up. That difference where we know we have this going into the budget and we add this much more that's being taxed. They're talking about the difference of what was there already and the new values.
Okay. So if you say across, I'll get to it. So if you look at the budget and you say, here's my baseline was, say, $400 million for a pay, right? That's what I pay. Employee benefits, just on the city side, just for example. So I say, oh, that's going to go up 2%. So you can kind of figure how much money that is. That's what, $8 million? Roughly $8 million? So there's $8 million. And they say, oh, wait a minute, then there's the city share, blah, 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 benefits, blah, blah. So now I need $9 million, just for an example. So my real estate tax base goes up. Every $100,000 is how much money? $1,000, right? That's roughly $1. So it's a little bit some digitals out there, but for rough purposes. So how many 100,000s do I need to get 9 million?
Extra.
So your first $9 million that you get on this increase in your tax base on these assessments is going to that. Then you go and say, okay, well, how much am I paying for lights and utilities and energy bill across the city? We do get a break, but not much break. We can say, okay, Community Resources raises their rate X%, just like your home. They got to say, oh, I got this much more I got to pay for utilities. I got to pay. So all those things go up, and then you got to say, oops, what's left? Did my revenue go up enough to cover all my cost growth? Well, when that doesn't happen at home, what do? Oh, well, first of all, we're not going to buy that new car. We cut back on our cable. We cut back on cell phone plan, you know,
Don't eat out.
be a little cooler, don't eat out, do all these kind of things to manage. Now, you gotta ask yourself, what the fundamental part of your question is the city, and to some extent the schools, but I do think they're quite still legal, they're very high labor cost places. The city, not as much. Are they doing as much to lean out what their expenses are as you as a household owner? And my answer is no. I'm sure the city manager would have to say yes, or he wouldn't have recommended a pay this tax increase. But my view is they're not as lean as a home budget. They're taking more private household risk than the city is taking public risk. As a matter of fact, I would say that if you want to start talking about what risk are we taking, I don't even know that they're prepared in their framework to even think and talk in risk management terms, which is the business I live every day, managing risk. And so where are we going to take the risk? He's telling you, this budget says, I can't take the risk of holding my budget relatively flat. You at home have to take more risk. You at your business have to take more risk. I just find that phenomenal that people are saying, are you crazy?
It's wrong.
It is wrong, but that's the heart of the issue with your question.
All right, the reason people aren't saying it's crazy is because this is not transparent. I have looked through this 10 pounds or 8 pounds of use whatever expletive you want. And I've worked in finance since 1980. And the debt service, John, the debt service. Let's just talk about the debt service. The debt service right now on the 1.228 billion in total bonds we have, the debt service is 152 million a year. Before we even touch the floor, all right, well, it's 2 million, all right. And so what we have though here in a very tiny little box on page 299 is debt service to general government expenditures, and it has some percentages. And right now, at 152 million, it's only 8.4%. It's going to go up to 9.7% in 4 more years. So we are on this ascension, this glide path, for lack of a better term, to raise the debt service, which minimizes the discretionary money you have available. You know, things like buying a $50 million replacement city hall with showers. It gives me no confidence that anybody knows where the money needs to go. You've got $893 million in PFRB bonds that are going to go backdoor through the VBTA that none of us in this room are going to get to vote on. And $893 million, the last time I checked, is a little bit more than the $10 million in the charter. So how do we make it transparent? Because I get it. I found it, I dug it out, you get it, but most people in this room, if they're listening to me, they're going, what is she talking about? It's because everybody needs to know these numbers. Everybody needs to know, just like they know when their Visa bill goes up, what they're paying. I don't run my household on Visa. And if I'm going to have to pay 21% to borrow $1, I'm not going to pay that interest charge. I'm going to pay it off. And I am offended that we pay somebody $263,000 and he doesn't think we're noticing, and he's transparent in his goals and in his documents, and he does everything to obfuscate and make it impossible for the simple people, you know, in this community who are so busy trying to pay their bills, get their kids to school, take care of their parents. So I could go on a rant on this, John, you know, but this debt service,
Stop ranting on it.
does so well. I mean, you've got to make it transparent.
Thanks for your rant, by the way. It made a lot of sense to me.
I love this job.
It's not personal against you.
I don't take anything personal, and you're probably not going to like everything I'm going to say either. I won't take that personal either. Okay, everyone, how many people in here, how many households do you think when they buy a house, that their annualized mortgage payment is less than 10% of their income?
How much?
Less than 10% of their income. Probably anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, and the reason why I only mention this is the city, just like, I like to say city budgeting is like family budgeting, but more zeros. And matter of fact, families have a much harder time because they can't confiscate revenue. But it's the same. So if you're telling me a city has to go out and do true capital stuff that they got to do, just like a household, renovate their home or buy a new home or are not going to incur debt service, because they want to amortize that cost to do so. That makes sense. It really does. All businesses do it. I never forget Warren Buffett once saying, he says, all this stuff, why don't you have a AAA credit rating? And his answer was, it's not worth it. He said, because the cost of capital that he would have to tie up in reserves, like we do,
Yes.
reserves to get that rating isn't worth it because of what he can earn on the money of investing it. So he's not interested in AAA, and because of the income of his business, they almost trade like AAA anyway. So you got to think about smartness. So when people say this, well, why you have that? Getting back to your, and there is a nexus between that point and your question is, I think the city to have a policy that we're not going to have more than 10% of our operating budget, which is the whole city, going to debt service, is not a bad target. Because now the real issue is, what are you borrowing the money for?
Yes.
And the problem is that we have requirements for flooding, which I think should be at the top of our list. We have requirements for some roads. You gotta have a balanced portfolio. So you say you have a kid, you can't spend all your money on one
Right.
kid, no matter how big their needs are. And we got schools, and we got public safety. If we can't meet all those requirements, everything else just waits. Just like at home, it waits. You don't get the new fence, you got a little board, stick it up there, duct tape if you're a Boy Scout, but you find a way to make it work because you can't, your priorities don't permit it and your cash flow doesn't drive it. What's happening here is we're going to be told down there, oh, gosh, now we have to change our debt policy. And now we have to do this and this and this because we spent all the debt service on some nice to do things, and now that you want this, you have to pay higher taxes and change our debt policy to get the things we should have had up front. So my issue is about how we allocate the debt service.
Yes.
Not that I'm concerned that it's 10%, because I'm really not concerned that it's 10%, because I think that's manageable, and I don't think that's too high for a city of our size and what we have to do. What we do with it's another thing, but let me get to the point of about transparency. So I saw the budget, and it had $45 million being appropriated for the new city hall, which is not the plan. I'm talking about my option, but we're not going there because I don't have 6 votes. But to build this building, and I said, wow, it's all being appropriated in 1 year. So I wrote a note to Patty, and I shared with Jessica, and I said, okay, what's the debt service that we're going to be incurring each year? Because they didn't show, the CIP doesn't show you the cash flow.
Right.
It just gives you this number. And she says, oh, well, we probably won't even have any debt service on that $45 million until maybe either the second or the third budget from now. I'm thinking, okay, all right. I said, because we're going to appropriate all this, but what we're really not appropriating, that's a bad word, what they're really doing is they're allocating $45 million of debt that they plan to issue at some point in the future, and they're getting a credit card to go against the cash balance, which they're later going to replenish, but how much are they spending in each of those years? So if you're looking at cash flow and that thing, you might say, well, why don't they just fund the design piece and let them get along, and then we keep ourselves open, because we might decide after we get it designed we don't still want it, or maybe a new council might decide that's not the right answer. Now, that aside, but the point of it is, you can't really tell from looking at that CIP what appropriated to date means. And there's no description that tells you the actual expenditure that's going to take place, when that debt service would come, and when those bonds would be issued by the project. They lump it all up into a big summary table that gives you transparency as to aggregate, but it might as well be telling you to look at the earth from space and try to tell me what the street's like in New York City. I mean, it's not transparency.
Exactly.
It is a facade. And so you have to really work. So that's what I'm talking about. Now, if you ask what we should do at City Hall, this is my plan, and Jessica, we all had it, is why can't we? We did the Pentagon. I know that's 1942 when that was built. It's way older than that place is. Why couldn't we just move in the trailers like students?
Yes.
Get the student experience. That probably would help us in our budget process. We've got the juvenile court building, which we use for all these other things, which could set up some chairs and tables in here. Hey, how much stuff do we need as a council member? They go and sit around a table, we sit up like a vote, we can raise our hand like they do every other kind of city league meeting. and put them